Join BluPrint Radio each Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. BluPrint Radio host Gloria Thornwell interviews organization leaders on trends and best practices in business and human capital management, business and human resource leadership, and being a change champion in the new global business economy. www.blogtalkradio.com/BluPrint LLC.
Hi, and welcome to BluPrint Radio. BluPrint Radio is a division of the BluPrint Leadership Institute, and on the BluPrint Radio show, we interview organization leaders and change management professionals who are subject matter experts in human capital management, business strategy, government contracting, and those who have reinvented and led organization transformation in the new global and changing economy. I'm Gloria Thornwell, Human Resource and Management Consultant, and your BluPrint Radio show host. Employee assistance programs, or EAPs as they are commonly referred, are a benefit to employees who are in need of counseling services. The EAP model originated in the 1970s in an effort to reduce substance abuse and intoxication in the workplace. Since that time, EAPs have progressed, and now they're used to deal with a variety of matters such as marital problems, depression, anger management, and anxiety. EAPs are intended to help employees better deal with problems and behaviors that might impact their workplace performance, but also their overall well-being in general. So how are EAPs set up? Well, EAPs are an arrangement between an employer and its employees, and while it can assist with work-related difficulties, it can also assist and support employees with problems that originate outside of the workplace, in particular when the personal matters begin to impact the employee's performance as well as their workplace behaviors. Some EAP programs may include short-term counseling and referral services for the employee, but also for their household members. We are discussing today the value of employee assistance programs with Dr. Joseph Bullock. He's the Director of Substance Abuse Services for the Arlington County Department of Human Services in Arlington, Virginia. Dr. Bullock will talk with us about several critical areas, including the most common reasons that he sees clients or that he's learned that clients seek EAP services. He'll talk to us about how EAP services help veterans and those who are active duty who may take advantage of EAP programs. Dr. Bullock has over 25 years of experience as a professional counselor, clinical supervisor, and administrator. He's also a consultant to the United States Navy, providing training and clinical supervision services to counselors in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Dr. Bullock is a licensed and professional counselor and substance abuse treatment provider in the states of Virginia and in Maryland. Welcome, Dr. Bullock, to BluPrint Radio. So I mentioned a little bit about EAP services for organizations, but also the armed forces. They also offer EAP services to those who are active duty. In fact, there are an abundance of program options for service members, including career development, time management, adoption, conflict management, depression, estate planning, family planning, daycare, but also elder care for the parents of those who are serving as active duty. And still, there are other EAP services that provide legal and financial assistance. But, really, it doesn't matter the organization that offers EAP services. All EAP consultations and referrals are confidential, and the services are provided at no cost to the employee or to the service member. We are going to go to a short commercial break, and at our return, we're going to begin our topic, Employee Assistance Programs, What's the Value? With Dr. Joseph Bullock, Director of Substance Abuse Services for the Arlington County Department of Human Services. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
Did you know that when you take a BluPrint Leadership Institute course, you can earn credits toward your PHR, SPHR, and GPHR recertification? The BluPrint Leadership Institute is certified by the Human Resource Certification Institute and by the International Accreditation Organization. Earn CEUs in project management, finance, executive development, and in other disciplines that will keep you current as a 21st century business leader. Register today. www.blueprint-llc.com.
Welcome back to BluPrint Radio. I am Gloria Thornwell, your BluPrint Radio show host. And today we are interviewing Dr. Joseph Bullock. He's the Director of Substance Abuse Services for the Arlington County Department of Human Services. And let's just see, Dr. Bullock, if you can hear us. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. Listen, welcome again to BluPrint Radio. And as with all the shows, we have a lot to cover and a lot to talk about today. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So, Dr. Bullock, from your perspective, and so I talked a little bit about it in my monologue, but from your perspective, can you define EAP for our listening audience? And again, this is from your perspective as a practitioner.
I would say in general that employee assistance programs is a set of professional services specifically designed to improve or help maintain productivity and healthy employee function in the workplace. It also is designed to address a work organization's particular business needs beyond counseling and assisting people with their interpersonal and personal issues. And this is done with a highly specialized group of professionals who have knowledge and expertise about human behavior and mental health as well as organizational behavior.
So, Dr. Bullock, again, in my monologue, I talked a bit about sort of the value add. But again, from your perspective, what is the real value add of EAP programs, specifically when there are behavioral issues and concerns in the workplace? So, in other words, how can EAP counseling help a person modify behaviors?
First, I would say that if for any organization, it's simply good business to help employees function at the top performance level possible. Everybody has problems from time to time, and so when this happens, one of the things that history has told us about EAP programs is that from a human resource perspective, the investment in interviewing, hiring, training, and getting highly skilled people become part of a workforce is just that, an investment. And so it certainly saves a lot of money from an organizational perspective to respond to employees who are specialists and highly trained by providing services that will help them work through difficulties that compromise their performance in the workplace, as opposed to just taking a personnel action to fire a person and then recruit, rehire, and retrain a new person. So I think that it's just good business practice to help employees function at the top performance, and that's done by providing them with additional supports and resources to allow them to be able to do that in a healthy work environment.
So I'm glad you brought up the piece about the human resource professionals. So listen, many companies have human resource or HR departments, and the HR departments many times have employee relations specialists that are there to help employees deal with behavioral issues or to help, moderate any difficulties between employees, particularly, when they're when the behavioral matters. So can the HR department be a substitute for EAP services?
I think that in organizations, oftentimes there is a bit of a blurred line between the difference between HR specialists who particularly are trained in the area of work-life benefits and versus an employee assistance professional who very often is a master's trained counselor, possibly and usually also including having a license in mental health and other substance use disorders. And so it's a very different kind of an approach to solving problems. And that's where the value of having an EAP to sort of join with the Human Resources Department to expand the ability of the Human Resources Department to address any problems an employee may have that might be causing a problem with their performance on the job.
I like that. So the EAP is sort of an extension of the employee relations team or the HR department. Absolutely.
You know, a lot of employees will think about HR in a traditional sense of questions about medical, dental, retirement benefits. Certainly they will consult human resources for other things like workplace policies and protocols, and then even potentially if there's questions about whether a person is eligible for promotion, eligible for acting pay, and those kinds of things. When a person is beginning to experience some interpersonal issues that can really occur in a variety of different levels that become a place and become evident in the workplace, you have that assistance, it's sort of extension of the human resources to link persons so that they can be properly evaluated and guided in the proper direction.
So let me ask this kind of a follow-on question. Do you get, or is it common that EAP or counseling professionals like yourself get phone calls or emails perhaps from HR professionals or managers, and I would probably say managers in particular, who are in need of advice when they don't, perhaps the employee hasn't reached out to EAP, but they need a little bit of advice. The manager may need a little bit of advice as to how to deal with this particular employee. Is that common?
Yes, this is common, and this is where having some expertise in organizational behavior comes in hand for EAP specialists. They're able to not only work one-on-one with employees who have interpersonal problems, but also to approach work with supervisors and others, leadership roles in the organization in terms of how to improve or work through a situation that may be arising with an employee. So consultation is available not only to individuals who actually need assistance, but also to leadership individuals in a leadership role who may just need some guidance on how to approach a complex situation in the workplace.
Dr. Bullock, what have you found to be, I would say, the three most common reasons, in your experience, the three most common reasons that your clients seek EAP services?
I think the proper answer for that question is that it really does vary from organization to organization. In my experience, most of the time the issues are either focused in the workplace where there's job-related stress, conflicts with other coworkers or supervisors that led to a referral for a consultation with EAP. But then, you have employees, as I mentioned earlier, who encounter problems outside of work, depression, grief and loss, alcohol, other substance abuse problems that, and I also mentioned financial issues, including gambling, that can cause problems and cause a person to seek out assistance through the Employee Assistance Program for help.
We are going to go to a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Dr. Joseph Bullock, licensed professional counselor and substance abuse treatment provider. Don't move, and we'll be right back.
Did you know that when you take a BluPrint Leadership Institute course, You can earn credits toward your PHR, SPHR, and GPHR recertification. The BluPrint Leadership Institute is certified by the Human Resource Certification Institute and by the International Accreditation Organization. Earn CEUs in project management, finance, executive development, and in other disciplines that will keep you current as a 21st century business leader. Register today. www.blueprint-llc.com.
Welcome back to BluPrint Radio. I am Gloria Swanwell, your BluPrint Radio show host. Dr. Joseph Bullock, licensed professional counselor and substance abuse treatment provider, is our guest and featured guest today, and he's talking with us about the value of employee assistance program. Dr. Bullock, my next question is, let's talk a little bit about active duty, those who are serving in the armed forces. Do you find that those who are serving in the armed forces, or the armed services rather, that they take advantage of EAP services just like in any other organization or any other company?
Yes, I would absolutely affirm that that is the case. Many times active duty personnel will encounter a variety of different problems that oftentimes on the advice of a colleague will seek out services. Those services aren't just limited to active duty service members, but also is available for family members. And as you know, with the military lifestyle, including common deployments, long-term absences from the home can create a lot of stress in the home, and so family members are also big participants in the employee assistance services available in the military system.
What about veterans? Are they eligible for EAP services? A lot of times in, with some private programs, even if you are a former employee, sometimes you can take it. Some programs allow you to take advantage of the services. Is that the same for veterans?
Yes. In fact, the United States Department of Veteran Affairs has a pretty comprehensive employee assistance program network of providers that are available to serve and respond to veterans who are in need of these kinds of services. And I just based on my experience, not having worked directly with employee assistance programs in that particular area, just talking to other active duty members, I do know that veterans have access to a network of EAP services as well as active duty personnel.
So how does an EAP program work? In other words, like how many sessions are offered? Is there a limit to how many free sessions are offered? Is there a point where there is a cost? Can you give us some detail there?
Yes, one of the things that I can say about employee assistance programs, particularly I would say in the last 10 years, is that flexibility has really increased in terms of how employee assistance programs work with employees. For individuals who have, depending on the work environment, there is the ability for comprehensive services to be offered confidentially in a face-to-face appointment. There's now, with some of the technology out there, the capability of doing telephone consultations with individuals. There's also the possibility of even doing some remote EAP services. I know that, for example, the military, when they have individuals deployed on ships out at sea, can do a long-range consultation using technology similar to Skype, so that folks can get assistance even if they're in an environment that's not conducive to having, an office-based setting. So, yes, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how folks are seeing but I would say typically it's an office-based setup where an individual, it may be co-located in the same building, but many times it's off-site so that it can ensure the utmost of confidentiality, protection of confidentiality.
Speaking of confidentiality, I'm glad you brought that point up as well. So, sometimes employees or service members, I'm assuming, reach out to the Employee Assistance Program because they are afraid to talk to the internal folks or the internal administrative staff or leadership. So, for instance, with the HR team, sometimes employees, unfortunately, don't trust the HR team and afraid that if they share details about what's happening in their personal life or otherwise, that it may somehow have an impact on their performance appraisal and those types of things. So you make a good point that it's all about confidentiality and keeping it between the counselor and the employee and or the service member.
Yes.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah,
go right ahead. I'm sorry. No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
As you were talking, I was thinking of many times EAP programs as a part of HR market their services to employees so that employees are aware that A, that they exist, and B, that it's a resource for them to access at any point in time. Most of the referrals to employee assistance programs are voluntary. Many people would probably think that it's initiated by HR, but the large majority are voluntary. And I would say that that's probably the direct result of how well an agency markets the availability of employee assistance program. If a person contacts employee assistance office on a voluntary basis, there's really no need to have or even awareness that the supervisor or other people in the organization would even be aware that they're using the service. That's where the confidentiality and protection of information comes in. And so I would say that oftentimes if there is a problem, whether it's a workplace issue where an employee just needs a different perspective about how to manage a difficult supervisor or issue with a coworker, or something more interpersonal or personal, whether it's depression or some other phase of life issue that they're experiencing, contacting the employee assistance office on a voluntary basis absolutely ensures that it's going to be a confidential session. If it does come by recommendation of a supervisor, the information is also kept confidential. The goal of the referral is to help the employee resolve any issues, which is not the same as having a consultation where the professional goes into the office and tries to work in a collaborative way to resolve a workplace issue. So on both fronts, confidentiality is at the forefront of working with an individual who seeks out employee assistance services.
I'm glad you brought that up also. So let me ask, so sometimes, as you mentioned, the manager, the HR department might refer the employee to the EAP program for help. And at least in organizations where I've worked, the policy or the agreement perhaps between the EAP service provider and the organization is that the EAP will get back to the management team or whomever the referring person was, letting them know that the person did attend sessions, or perhaps completed sessions, but there are no details supplied to the management team or to the HR department. Is that still the practice?
Yes, that certainly is the practice. Oftentimes, a supervisor will call the employee assistance office and just get a consultation, explain the situation. The employee assistance professional will make sure that they have all of the proper information for making a recommendation to the employee. And oftentimes, as a part of that, there's an agreement that the EAP will contact the supervisor if the person reaches the office. But this is not kept in secret for the employee. The emphasis is that anything that's talked about in that relationship is confidential, and that the only thing that would be communicated is that the person showed up. And after that, the expectation really would be that the employee and the EAP specialist will address whatever issue the employee is there to be dealt with.
About how many sessions typically are the employee allowed for, I'm guessing, for free of cost? Is there a sort of a practice in the industry that maybe there are 5 sessions offered for free and then the other ones there might be a cost associated with it, or is it different for each provider and each organization relationship?
It's certainly a variety of ways that the employee assistance service is connected to an agency. Sometimes the office is a part of, for example, a local county government. It's part of the operation, and so it's part of the county government operation, whereas some private companies or nonprofit companies might have a third-party organization that's providing the service. In those instances where it's a third party, oftentimes there are the services are covered through group insurance policies, and typically the issue that if it's a workplace issue, job stress or finances or something along those lines, those are tend to be brief encounters with the employee assistance professional. Whereas if it's something more complex, like a mental health issue or substance abuse issue that's going to require a referral to another agency to get some treatment, that is all coordinated through the insurance benefits as well. So there's a lot of different directions the referral can go once the employee assistance professional has done an assessment and determined what the issue is and the seriousness of that issue and whether or not it can be managed right in the EAP office or whether there's going to be a need for an additional referral. For example, if a person needs alcohol or other drug addiction treatment.
I'm glad you talked about the insurance piece, because my next question, and I think you've answered it, was going to be how can an organization find out about EAP services. And so I think the answer is many insurance programs, so health insurance programs, medical insurance programs, I'm not sure if it's life insurance programs, but those programs offer EAP services as a part of their package.
Yes, and then if it's a startup company or a company is just interested in looking at they don't have EAP program currently as a part of their agency, the Employee Assistance Trade Association is a good place to start to begin to familiarize yourself with the scope of services that are available for agencies and organizations, as well as the kinds of things that would be involved in adding that network to the Human Resources Department.
Dr. Bullock, I wish we had more time. It's been a great pleasure having you on our show today, and you've enlightened our listening audience a great deal by sharing from your perspective, from a clinical practitioner's perspective, the real value of an employee assistance program, and further that an employer with an established EAP really can better attract and retain talent than otherwise a similar employee without an EAP. Dr. Bullock, again, we want to thank you for joining BluPrint Radio. To learn more about BluPrint, Visit us at www.blueprint-llc.com. Thank you for joining BluPrint Radio. We hope you will join us each Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.
Join BluPrint Radio. Join BluPrint Radio each Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. BluPrint Radio host Gloria Thornwell interviews organization leaders on trends and best practices in business and human capital management, business and human resource leadership, and being a change champion in the new global business economy. www.blogtalkradio.com/BluPrint LLC.